So this is my Nilou build, and it's the same in every team. It's more that her teammates and their builds change across teams. These are my stats. First of all, as you can see, I have 72,000 HP. Now in the recent live stream, there's a new artifact set that got announced, and a 2-piece of that set will give you another 20% HP. So that's something I'm going to have to farm, and I think unless you have insane artifacts, you should also try farm it. 20% of that plus 20% from the tenacity should give you an extra roughly 3,000 HP, which would put me around 74 to 75,000 HP. Doesn't matter if you go slightly high. So the HP cap for this buff is 74,444 HP. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you go slightly too high or slightly less. This is what will give you the maximum team buff, and everybody likes the biggest numbers. I have a signature weapon. This is very good. It gives a lot of HP, and it gives quite a big team buff to both herself and her team, which is quite useful because it doesn't matter which team she's in, she does do quite a lot of reactions. So these are my current artifacts before I start farming for the new set. You can see, although you do want to prioritize HP, you still want quite a bit of elemental mastery and energy recharge as much as you can get. So with Nilou, as you always go for a HP on a sands, HP on a goblet, and HP on a circlet. That means you can't get HP percent in these substats. So usually her pieces, you want to get as much HP percent as possible on your flower and plume. So you can see I've got about 16% here and 19% here. If you can get like 20%, that's good. But then I've got quite a bit of energy recharge and elemental mastery here, and some flat HP there. And then because I can't get HP percent in these pieces, I've got a lot of elemental mastery and some energy recharge. Now hopefully a lot of you know by now, but her burst is very good. Some people did think that it was maybe like a DPS loss or not worth investing energy recharge in, but I think we know by now that that's not true. First of all, her burst has good invincibility frames, which obviously keeps you alive as you're not taking recoil damage or other damage whilst you're using her burst. So it's great for survival, but also it's great for hydro application. Its hydro application is in a wide AoE, which effectively means it does a lot of damage in a wide AoE. And also the thing is, if you've got all these HP artifacts, these aren't that rare, and it means that you don't really have much other substats to aim for. Like I don't really need crit, I don't need attack for obvious reasons. So you might as well be picking up these energy recharge and elemental mastery substats. Obviously I have C0, and then I have quite decent talents. They're not highly invested. Now I pretty much always pair her with nahida, and this build I don't really change across teams either. I've got a signature weapon. Now actually in Nilou teams, this isn't that good. In fact, it's probably not even much of an upgrade over the Widsith if you have that. But I have it. It gives a small amount of EM to the team. These are the artifacts I have for her. Pretty much you always want to be using a deepwood memory set for her in bloom teams. Some people might calculate that Gilded Dreams can have slightly higher DPS, but the reality is she is the most consistent character to be using this set. She has the highest uptime on her skill, and she has great AoE in these teams. There's no point really giving this to anyone else. So these are my artifacts. A common question is, should you use elemental mastery on your goblet, or should you use dendro damage bonus, or should you use elemental mastery on a circlet or crit damage? Here's the thing with Nahida's artifacts. The reality is, whether using elemental mastery or dendro damage or crit or elemental mastery on all three of these are all rare artifacts. All of these have really low drop rates. You kind of have to just take whatever you can get. And the good thing is, whether you're playing double dendro or triple hydro, she's never going to be doing every single reaction in the team. And she has pretty good personal damage with her skill, so it is worth investing in crit and building up her personal damage. As you can see, even with her signature weapon, I'm not even hitting 1000 EM, but I think the 1000 EM thing is kind of overrated. It's decent to aim for, but it's not like a requirement. You don't have to go for it. So I've got this on-set dendro goblet. It's got quite better substats than my elemental mastery one, so that's the reason I use it. I suppose if you have better subsets on your Elemental Mastery Goblet, you should use it over this. And like I said, all circlets are going to be rare, so if you do have something with good subsets like this, then use that. I suppose if you have maybe something like this for Elemental Mastery Circlet, you can use that, but I guess most people won't. Just use whatever you have. This is the kind of ratio I've got, which is pretty good. Like I said, our personal damage is worth it in these teams, no matter if you're playing a double Hydro or triple Hydro team. Oh yeah, and energy recharge is pretty good for her as well. Her burst isn't that insane in Nilou teams because the EM buff only buffs the on-field character, and the on-field character isn't always creating all the blooms, so it's not that efficient. But you'll often see in my gameplay, I do cast her burst during downtime windows or when enemies are respawning, so it's still something that I use and it's still good. It's just not something that you'd be using like every 12 seconds or whatever. So now we get into the teammates. As you know, this is probably the team I play the most, and this has Kokomi and Collei. This is one of my Kokomi's builds. This is my Flower of Paradise Lost set, and I try to get as much EM as possible here with ER and a bit of HP. Sack frags, I always endorse this. This has a lot of EM, which is good because Kokomi does a lot of reactions in Bloom teams. And most importantly, it gives this extra skill use, which is very good for repositioning and just keeping uptime on a jellyfish. So these are pretty crazy artifacts. I don't expect you guys to get pieces like these. You can see, again, Elemental Mastery pieces are very rare no matter which set. But I managed to get quite a lot of energy recharge and HP rolls too. I've got this flower which isn't that great, but I have this which has very good substats, but it didn't roll as well as I wanted. But if I do switch to that, 190 energy recharge, which is pretty crazy. As you know, you don't always have to be running a full EM build like this. Sometimes if I want more comfort, like more healing, or if I'm fighting a lot of more bosses or a lot more single target and I want more flexibility, then I use this Ocean Hue Clam set. And as I've explained in previous videos already, because there's a lot of diminishing returns and lots of team EM buffs in Nilou teams, there isn't that much of a damage loss between something like this and full EM. And you end up with a lot of healing, and some people find it a lot more comfortable. Actually, for this build, I use this flower. So yeah, this is my, I guess, hybrid build. And it has a lot more better personal damage because of this hydro damage bonus, and more damage from this healing bonus and more healing. This is something I would bring when there's like a mix of AoE and single target fights in the Abyss. I have Constellation 0, and these are my talents. Pretty well invested, because I also just play Kokomi in other teams as well. As some of you may know, you don't even have to be strict like this. You can use Elemental Mastery here, you can use Elemental Mastery or HP here, and you can even use a healing bonus circlet with your Gilded Dreams or Flower of Paradise Lost sets. She has a lot of flexibility with her pieces. It just depends on what sort of balance you want in between her reaction damage and her healing or personal damage. You can adapt it to the fight, or you can adapt it to your playstyle, whatever you want. In this double dendro team, my favourite character to play is Collei. I've covered her in many videos already. You know, I like her flexibility, I like her playstyle, and I like how good it is for speedrunning. These are my stats. I always use Sacrificial Bow. I don't have energy for the end, but Sacrificial Bow is great. Similar to Kokomi, it allows Collei to have higher uptime on her elemental skill. And Collei's elemental skill is very good because it is portable and it has a lot of flexibility. As I covered in a recent video, if you want to fully min-max, her best set is Emblem, but doesn't really matter that much. Just give her the best pieces you have. It's attack, dendro and crit. She doesn't need too much EM just because she's really good for control, especially with nahida. they have a lot of dendro application between both of them, so it's mostly their hydro teammates who are going to be doing the reactions. But I've got a bit here, but I'm mostly focusing on crit and energy recharge. I've only got her on C2, so that's just a testament just to how good Collei is, that even only at C2 I'm still using her in all these gameplay and speed runs. This C2 is very good for extending the elemental skill. If I had Constellation 4, it should be even stronger because this is basically a team EM buff, because Collei isn't really doing that much reactions. This 60 is very good. And this C6 would give her even more damage and, more importantly, more dendro application. I don't have it yet though. And these are her talents. Maybe I'll take these to 9. Probably not going to crown them. So that's probably the team I take to the Abyss the most. There are some other variations I do play sometimes. For example, this triple hydro team, as you know, I haven't made that many Abyss videos on it, but the great thing about this is that it's very good for the overworld, mostly because of Yelan's skill. I basically use the same builds here. One thing you do want to pay attention to is that because in this team you have Nahida on field a lot, you obviously need to have a bit of HP and healing bonus on your kokomi. So I get even more versatility from this Ocean Huge Clam set. I don't need to switch this around. If I wanted to min-max even more, I could change this to Elemental Mastery, but it's not that deep. So with Yelan, as a lot of you know by now, it turns out Nahida doesn't actually do every single reaction in the team, which means I do need to build my Yelan, or if I do use xingqiu, I do need to build them both with some EM. Now obviously I don't like changing around their artifacts. You know, these are like some pieces that I would use in a Hu Tao team, same thing for xingqiu. So what you can do to easily add EM is just give her the stringless, and with xingqiu, instead of sacrificial sword in a regular team, you can just give him something like Xiphos Moonlight. I find these to be quick fixes just to give them some EM, because like I said, depending on the fight and your gameplay execution, they will be getting quite a bit of reactions. But obviously you don't want to be removing all their personal damage, because you did place them in the team to be adding that personal damage for single target fights. These are my Yelan's pieces. Pretty decent, nothing too crazy. C0. I have a double crowned. And now the final sort of team I play. I don't play this that much. Yaoyao's more of like a comfort character. She's more of a character that gives Nilou more team building options. Mostly if you don't have kokomi, or sometimes, as I mentioned in the previous video, you can play her with kokomi to give you double healing. But me personally, I don't really need that, so I don't play this team that much. But this is a team that I might be playing for friendship or just for quickly in domains. Like I said with xingqiu, I don't want to be changing his build too much. This is a build that I'll be using in a national team or with Hu Tao. So for a quick fix, you can just switch this over to Xiphos. And he's got a decent amount of EM. I might have to change him over to some ER piece or whatever, but this is roughly my build. C6, and I have him double crowned. Now with Yaoyao, I've covered her in a previous video. For most of our teams, you don't actually need that much EM. That's why I only have 273. And when she's a solo healer, you do want quite a bit of HP. So you can see I've got HP Sands. And I use her with Deathmatch. You can use her with anything really. Doesn't matter too much. Maybe you want to use Black Tussle for even more HP. But I'm sure you know the good thing about her is that in her burst mode, she has Dendro Res bonus, which means she takes about half the damage that other characters would do. And she's a healer, which means she's pretty comfortable to play and should be very tanky. I only have her on C2. This C4 is pretty good for extra EM, but like I said, I don't notice her doing too many reactions in this team in particular. but this would be useful, say if you're playing her with Candice. And a C6 seems very strong. This gives more dendro application and it gives you more healing, which probably is overkill, but this is still nice. And yeah, I've got quite a bit of energy recharge on her. I guess you can go for Vonius Lance if you want, but this is what I use. So yeah, you can say these are probably the 3 most common teams I play. Personally, I play this the most, or like I said, if I'm in the overworld, Triple Hydra is very good. Mostly because you can just run around with Yelan's skill, but I don't use that team that much in the Abyss. As you know, most of my videos I use this double dendro team with collei. I find it the most flexible and I get a pretty good speed run, so it has good performance too. I don't really play her with Dendro Traveler anymore. The funny thing is, when nahida was releasing, a lot of people were relieved because they could finally replace their collei with nahida, but actually I was the reverse.
Everything's ready. Let's go.
I was finally relieved I could replace Dendro Traveler.
Time to broaden our horizons again.
So who knows how this team or my builds will develop in the future. Next patch, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'll be going for a 2-piece of the new set that will give me an extra 20% more HP, which translates to roughly extra 3000 HP, which will increase her buff and will make my balloons for the team slightly bigger, which is nice. Hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching.